Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of The Dunker Spot. We are part of 342 Productions. I am your host, Nekias Duncan, and joining me as always is my co-host, Steve Jones Jr. Steve, how are you doing, sir?
Feeling good, feeling great. Happy to be here, excited to be here. Thank you, Dunkers, for once again embracing your bounce. Dunker Nation, let's ride. Nekias, let's hoop it up.
Let's hoop it up indeed. We are fresh off of a weekend full of playoff hoops. We got some good games. We got some shenanigans. Got a couple of blowouts mixed in there as well. We did have one of the series in. We can start very briefly with the Sixers and the Nets. Two close wins for the Sixers. That game 3 was very antic-filled with Joel Embiid with the kick and James Harden with an off-arm thing that went to a place you generally don't want that to happen. And yet, game 3 victory for the Sixers. Game 4 victory for the Sixers. We'll start with Brooklyn. How did you feel about their playoff run, their showing against Philadelphia, and where do you project they go from here heading into the offseason?
I mean, for me, I understand the disappointment. It's not fun to get swept. I know the Nets have had some playoff question marks over this run last few years. They've tried to go up, go down, get talent. I would say this is a positive for them. One, when they made that deal, they made those deals, they still competed. They were still able to make the playoffs. You found a whole lot from Mikal Bridges. I think you feel pretty good about Cam Johnson. And you have a lot of wings or potential assets that could turn into other pieces. So you at least know, okay, we have this for the future. Now we can build around that. They're going to have to fill out the roster. I think the switching hurt them just entirely too much with this particular group. But to be able to get that from Mikal, to get a playoff experience, to know, okay, we're going to need this around him, or we're going to need this for this next version of the team. I think that's a positive. Where are you at with Brooklyn?
I think you have to feel good. Like you said, it stinks to get swept. And to Brooklyn's point, like they came in with this defensive game plan that we are going to double Joel Embiid. We're going to rotate behind it. We're going to muck things up in the half court. And they largely did that. Philadelphia's offense was elite for most of the year. They finished as a top 5 offense in terms of offensive rating. Half court offense was very good. Across the 4 games, they were below not just their average, they were below league average. If you go back to the regular season and get that number, below league average in terms of half court offense. Brooklyn did their job. Brooklyn could not score enough to punish them. And this is with getting some good stuff from Mikal Bridges and ultimately, eventually, seeing some different coverages. And we talked through those. A lot of drop, got some switches, got 2 to the ball sometimes. Varying results with that. And this is Mikal's first playoff run as the guy. So you expect some up and downs there. Cam Johnson getting progressively more aggressive as the series went on, I think is very encouraging and dovetails nicely into his offseason as he hits the restricted free agency market. I would imagine he's made himself quite a bit of money with the way that he played, at least offensively. Defensively, he still ended up being the matchup where, okay, you can slide your feet well. We can get into your chest a little bit. There are some matchups, like we talked about it throughout the watch parties that we were hosting. That was one of the matchups that James Harden still felt comfortable with. Like, hey, I may not be able to blow by this guy, but I can at least get my shoulder into his chest and move him a little bit and get into that short mid-range jumper or get to some layups, which he did still miss some, but we can talk about that a little bit shortly. But overall, like, you nailed it with Mikal. Cam is very good, and because he's a restricted free agent, you have the ability to keep him as long as you want to keep him, either by giving your own offer or just matching whatever he gets. You still have a bunch of wings. You now have a bunch of picks from the KD trade. So I think they're set up nicely to kind of go in whatever direction they want to go in the offseason. I don't know what to make of like Dame sitting courtside and all that different stuff. I'm not going to get into that on this podcast. But they have some interesting pathways to explore heading into the offseason. And on the Philly side, they get to rest a little bit, which seems important in light of Joel Embiid missing the game 4 with the knee injury. Doc Rivers did not seem very happy when discussing the injury and the MRI that came where they revealed that. I think the early reporting from Adrian Wojnarowski was that there was some optimism that Joel Embiid could be ready early next week, which will be, I guess, this week at this point when the report came out. And then you heard the Doc presser, and it's like, I don't know if this sounds like something that he's just okay. We're going to hold him out for a game and he'll be ready to rock. So I do wonder what the recovery process is going to be like there. But looking ahead, Boston's up 3-1 on Atlanta right now. We'll talk about that series a little bit later. How did you feel about Philadelphia's offense, and how do you feel about it moving forward?
I have thought that this was a very good series for Philadelphia. And the reason why is because they got a taste of a little bit of everything they may have to see going forward. Embiid doubles, having to counter that, having to deal with switches. James Harden getting switched, Maxey and Harris having to deal with switches. You're going to see that. And then having the ability to at least toggle through defensive coverages on the other end. It's not going to be the same challenge. Obviously, Boston has a more potent offensive attack, but at least knowing, hey, we can do different things, that's a positive. So I think they got a lot out of this. I think getting minutes for Paul Reed was big, getting contributions from a little bit of everybody. Offensively, I just think that you kind of have an understanding and a better feel for what happens when Joel gets doubled. And I think that is more positive for Philadelphia than anything else. What do you think?
I'm mostly with you. Like from a process perspective, I didn't have much issue with what Philadelphia did. Like there was the turnover heavy, I want to say game 3 or game 2, one of the 2 games where it got a little turnover heavy. It was like, hey, this is how Brooklyn wants the double teams to hit. This is how they want to muck things up, and this is what it looks like if it works. But other than that, they mostly moved the ball well. Joel Embiid, it didn't feel like he forced the issue too often. And we talked about it earlier in the series where he mixed up, okay, I'm going to catch and immediately attack this time. This time I'm going to catch, accept the double, then make the pass. This time I'm going to accept the double, make the pass, now I'm going to cut off ball or curl off ball and get something going that way. So seeing him kind of work through that was encouraging to me. My eye still goes to, okay, what version of James Harden are we getting here? Not to beat that drum, but just in terms of burst, in terms of picking out the matchups, in terms of the speed of attacks, how quickly he decides to go after it, like keeping an eye on that. And I think mostly he was fine from a process perspective. It's just checking the results at this point. Like even in the game 4, got to the rim quite a bit in that game. Some uncharacteristic misses for him. And that feels like something, it doesn't look great, but it's also something that can turn rather quickly. He makes 2 or 3 or more of those in the game 4. We're talking about a much different game. I mean, they end up winning anyway, but like we're having a different tone of conversation with that. So just more so, again, process stuff for me. What does it look like? How easily can you get into this area of the court? Then also seeing Tyrese Maxey really pick things up in that game 3 after everything went haywire, had some positive moments in game 4 as well. Tobias Harris just quietly chugging along, knocking down shots, getting to the basket as well. So I think you saw what you needed to from Philly. Like, okay, these are the type of defenses that we can see. It may bother us a little bit, but at least we know what we're supposed to do. I'm glad that I have more like, will it happen questions for Philadelphia, more so than do they know how to deal with it? If I came out of this series saying, hey, do they know how to deal with these doubles or these different defenses, I would be a lot lower moving forward. But it's going to be mostly results based. So we'll just have to see what Harden's health is like. Obviously, what Embiid's health is going to be like. That's going to be the major one there. But I'm mostly fine with where Philly is right now.
So you're saying you trust the process?
I see. I am more trusting of the process. I think that's a fair way to phrase it. Let's get into some of these 2-1 series right now. We will start with the Los Angeles Lakers getting a 111-101 victory over the Memphis Grizzlies in a game that was frankly just wild to process in real time. A 35-9 start for the Los Angeles Lakers. Dillon Brooks eventually gets ejected from that game with more off-ball reaching stuff happened in that game. So sure. Game seemed out of hand. Grizzlies make a run. Ja Morant absolutely loses his mind in the fourth quarter in particular. And it was funny to me because like the game starts and within the first couple of minutes, like Josh trying to dribble with his right hand, he can't really control it. It was looking odd. I immediately tweet out, I don't think Josh should be on the court. Fast forward an hour and a half, and the guy finishes with 45 and 13. Is like, well, I guess he figured it out. It was nice seeing him get to the rim pretty consistently in the second half. But I zoom out from that game. I had to go back through it again. Because, again, the first quarter was just insane and just felt like the game was just over from there. And Memphis did end up outscoring LA by double digits through quarters 2 through 4. But, like, it was just a wild start, and it was just a major climb for them. I zoom out, and I was like, man, the Lakers half-court offense still didn't feel great in that game. It was still a lot of Memphis couldn't get shots to go. They ran in transition, which is important. And we talked about that at the top of the series. If whoever can get stops and get out and run, like they're going to have an easier time. The Lakers largely won that one. But like there was one specific like double drag adjacent action that the Lakers were running early in the first quarter, specifically when Jaren Jackson checked out around the 7-minute mark, just spamming it. Austin Reeves as a screener, Anthony Davis as a screener, empty corner on the right side of the floor. They're just getting good stuff out of it. Once Memphis started switching that, it became tough sledding for the Lakers in the half court. I still kind of wonder what their process is offensively and if they can hit the right notes consistently. Like, where did you land with this game?
I thought they actually played with a lot more purpose in the first quarter than they had in the previous games. I thought they at least had a mindset. There was an aggression. They were looking to drive. They were getting to that double pick and roll with an empty side. They were trying to execute quickly, and I thought that was important. I think that LeBron seeing that they were switching and being like, actually, you know what, Xavier Tillman, here's a step back. Let's just send a message here real early. D'Angelo Russell looking to get downhill, them trying to mix things up with the screeners, getting them in rotation. I thought that was important. The issue is for the Lakers, they don't necessarily have the movement and the tempo to do it consistently. So if it's not going to be a specific action, how are they grinding the Grizzlies? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Do you feel comfortable or confident that they can find something, or is this just going to be the series?
It feels like it's going to be the series, and a large part of that is just this Memphis Grizzlies defense is good. And like, even with them missing some pieces, when Jaren's on the floor, they still defend at a high level. And the Lakers, with the lineups that they played, they still have enough help points available for Memphis to where they can still kind of load up the way that they want to and muck some stuff up. And so, again, that's why it popped for me very early on. Like, oh, they're clearing this corner. Here's this double pick and roll. They're getting John balls at the first screener. They know Memphis doesn't want to switch that. They're getting some good stuff. You got a D-Lo drive. You got a LeBron cut and finish. You got an Anthony Davis lob. You got an Anthony Davis offensive rebound after a D-Lo miss. You got Austin Reeves in the same action. Like, okay, they're finding good stuff. And then Memphis makes some subs, and then they switch more. It's like, oh, this isn't even ideal switch personnel for them, and they're still able to kind of muck some stuff up. And so I want to give Memphis their credit as well. Like, even with the weird first quarter from them, and as weird as the game started and everything like that, like, the Lakers only scored 111 in this game. If Memphis makes shots in the first quarter, not even they tied up or anything like that. If Memphis is only down like 13 at the end of the first, we may be looking at an entirely different game. I don't know if Los Angeles can hit the notes consistently to really put pressure on this Memphis team, because this Memphis team is a very good defensive squad. And like, we've talked through some of the lineup combinations, when the Lakers go small, when Memphis goes small, they can move the chess pieces around a little bit, but Memphis still has enough to where they can provide some help when necessary. And it's still going to boil down to a lot of winning one-on-one matchups, which is where I think the Rui shots have been very important for them. Like, Anthony Davis in general has been very important for them, and a dominant showing for him again. 31-17 was a monster defensively. It's still going to boil down to who can take advantage of those one-on-one matchups. Can you find different areas for LeBron to attack? Like, this was the drive heaviest game for him per second spectrum in this one. Anthony Davis always tracking where his post touches are coming from. If he can get downhill, you mentioned it up top, D'Angelo Russell, a real intention to get downhill for him. And very quietly, this was just his best game of the series, it felt like. So that's nice. Austin Reeves has been trying to get downhill as well. So if they can get enough of those, and again, zooming out, if they're able to force misses for Memphis again transition, those driving opportunities get a little bit easier. They're able to put pressure on them that way. So even if you can't find it consistently in the half court, if you aren't there all the time, then that's all you need to kind of work your way through.
I mean, it's interesting because my next question was going to be, how do you feel about Memphis's half-court offense, considering the start they had? It feels like, and this is a game that will be played, game 4 is tonight. So by the time you hear this, things will have happened. It feels like throughout each game, each team has their offensive struggles, but that's also combined with the other defense doing really good things. And so it makes it tricky to figure out which is more important, because the team that's getting stops usually gets easier baskets. They look pretty good. And then it kind of flip-flops. Do you have the same concerns with Memphis's offense, or is this just Laker-based?
I do have similar concerns with the Memphis offense. And I think once you zoom out from just the ridiculousness of what Ja Morant's fourth quarter was, like, the drives for him are going to be very, very, very important. because outside of him, the Lakers just have so much size elsewhere. And then with the way that they're toggling the matchups with, if it's going to be LeBron on Xavier Tillman or if it's LeBron on Jaren and Anthony Davis just gets to roam a little bit, they just have so many avenues to kind of sink in and restrict space for the Grizzlies. Ja kind of has to win with those tight area drives, and he's one of the best in the league at it, so he can do that, but they need him to do that and to kind of loosen up the shackles of that half-court offense. Because a lot of where Ja's success was, like he did have a lot of great drives, particularly in that fourth quarter, but a lot of Ja's success in that second half, he just knocked down three after three after three after three. And it was great because if Ja can get to the paint whenever he wants to and knock down shots, you don't know what to do. But on the flip side, you kind of think, they want Ja taking jumpers. And then once you factor in the literal hand injuries that he's playing through with the rep and everything like that, it's like, okay, if you're taking these, hats off to you, man. That's nice. So I think I go back to your earlier point in the series about the Jaren usage. And okay, how many screens are they running him off of? Like if LeBron's going to get that matchup, I don't think Jaren post up versus LeBron, Jaren drive against LeBron. I don't think it's going to be it. Even if Jaren wins some of those matchups, and he did in like game 1 and game 2, even if you win some of those, is that going to be enough to bend the Lakers? I don't think so. Make LeBron trail a couple, maybe force a switch, and then have Jaren drive and post up. That may be where you can generate some more help. And then maybe that takes some of the pressure off of Ja. Maybe you can then utilize, if you're utilizing Desmond Bane as one of the screeners or like a stagger for Jaren or something like that, maybe that's where you can really configure some stuff and make the Lakers move a little bit.
So who's more important, Jaren Jackson Jr. or Desmond Bane for the Grizzlies offense down the rest of the series?
I hate the way you frame this because my general answer would just be yes. So it's a good question. I would say it's probably more important to get Desmond going. I think they do need another guard. Obviously, Jaren's going to be important with the inside-out dynamic he can bring, but considering Desmond can also act as a secondary ball handler for you, just the general importance of his movement shooting as well, the Grizzlies can't afford for him to also not have it going because he's also the only other. Well, Tyus can do it too, but like Tyus is more so getting to the intermediate area and getting to the floater. Like Desmond's the only other guy in the guard room that can really get to the rim too. And so if you can find that blend for him, I think it makes it a little bit easier to navigate in the half court. Where do you land on that?
I mean, that was one of my thoughts coming out of that game. I didn't feel like Desmond had a bad game, but his shot making is so important. And this is the first game where it was like, oh, Jaren Jackson Jr. has to score for Memphis. Mm-hmm. And the way that LeBron was like, I'm just going to be in a drop. Like, cool, you want to use me as a screener? That's cool. I'll be back here. And now are they going to run him off screens? How are they going to unlock things for him? Is it just against small lineups? Like, what does that look like? And that's where you kind of get into like the fight of the series. Memphis needs those guys to produce. What Ja did was fantastic, but they need those two to produce, just like the Lakers need the guard play. They need Austin Reeves. They need D'Angelo Russell. They need Rui to hit those shots. It's going to be the others who win this series, and it's going to be about defense. I think whichever team can kind of just figure that portion out, you're starting to understand what they can't live with. Grizzlies can't live with the Lakers driving and kicking and making shots. And the Lakers can't live when their offense has no purpose. So who's going to do the thing more?
Who's going to do the thing more? Indeed. We can now slide to the other game. The other series is at 2-1 right now, also playing on Monday. Forgot to give the disclaimer earlier. It's about a little after 3 p.m. Eastern as we record this. So 4.5, 5 hours before the Monday slate begins. So audio people, you may be able to catch this earlier. For the people watching on YouTube, my apologies. We hope that these points hold for you. Anyway, Miami getting a 121-99 victory over the Milwaukee Bucks. They now have a 2-1 lead in the series. Giannis is slated to play in game 4. We will see what his effectiveness will be like. After game 2, rather, I was like, hey, what the heck happened with this Miami defense? I started the segment with, I wanted to talk about Brook Lopez usage, but I watched that game, was like, hey, what the heck was this defense? Game 3, different story for Miami. The ball pressure, the pickup points, just the general activity that they had defensively really perked up. And that allowed them to force some misses, force some turnovers, get out and run, and get some easy ones. It also helps that they continue to shoot very well from 3, which I'm sure it's perplexing for any Heat fan watching this series. Like, we have been waiting all year long for the 3-point shooting to bounce back, and now is when the shots go in.
Before you continue, who do you think is more perplexed, Heat fans or Bucks fans? Because the 3-point shooting in this series has been insanity.
Yeah, like Milwaukee's also shooting well from 3. Milwaukee is having the 3-point shooting series that they would want, and they're still somehow getting outshot, which is wild to me. And in terms of their shot profile, Milwaukee actually leaned a lot more 3 heavy than I think even they anticipated heading into this one. But yeah, like that's been a very weird portion of it, but really impressed by what Miami was able to do defensively. The 3-point shooting very much popped for them. The Kevin Love insertion into the starting lineup replaced Duncan Robinson, who still wound up hitting 5 threes and knocking it and getting 20 points off the bench. Duncan. But Kevin Love insertion into the starting lineup, I think, ended up paying off. One, and most importantly, they just had more size in the front court. Because I think a big part of game 2, I talk about some of the, the bot switches and stuff like that from Miami. Also, they were just small, period. So even if they nailed it, there were just going to be some matchups that Milwaukee was going to be able to take advantage of. Brook Lopez in particular got some easy ones, some duck-ins, some post-ups, just kind of lurking around the dunker spot, kind of cutting in after spacing, getting some push shots to go. He didn't really get any of that in game 3. And I think Kevin Love, not that he's an elite defender, but he's still 6'9", 6'10", and strong. And so you're not going to be as willing to just clear aside and say, hey, Brook, go to work. You can still do that. And I do think overall there was probably more room for Brook to get some usage in that game. But I can understand why they went away from that. I also had a little bit of, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask a question, but you continue. I think you're going to hit it.
Just in terms of Milwaukee's shot profile and their process offensively, the shooting has been very good for them all series long. And at the beginning of that game, watching Jrue Holiday knock down pull-ups, and it's like, oh, it's going to be one of those. Because Jrue just could not miss the first 4 or 5 minutes of the game. But then once those shots stopped falling, specifically the pull-ups, I was like, okay, where do we go here? Because I don't think you want to live on the 3-point diet while Miami is shooting like this. Like, I think your advantage still is going to be, we may be able to get downhill against this group. We may be able, or at the very least, we may be able to pick at some of the size matchups that we have and be able to send some help, Miami send help where they don't want to, and be able to play out of that. And I do think it got a little quick on the trigger for Milwaukee, and that allowed Miami again to grab the board and push and get some early offense, and things were able to snowball from there. What were you about to say?
Well, I was going to ask. To me, it felt like Love in the starting lineup was also a response to, hey, Bobby Portis, you're not doing that against Gabe Vincent ever again in life. So I feel like it's like, no, you got to come guard me. Number 2, can Miami pull that off with Giannis returning? And this is where it's very interesting because Miami's up 2-1. They have done what they needed to do to be up 2-1. Giannis now returns. Does that shift the entire series for you?
I think it can, and it's important to note before I get yelled at for Heat fans. Like, at the time that Giannis went down, I think Miami was in the lead when this happened. But at any rate, it can very much be a series shifter. On the most basic of levels, Giannis is at worst a top 3 player in basketball. And if Giannis is a little bit hindered, then he's at worst the top 12 player in basketball. Like, this is a very big deal that Giannis is coming back, which is very dull analysis for me. But yes, in terms of the matchups, though, game 1, Giannis started on Gabe Vincent. Game 2 with Giannis out, Bobby Portis on Gabe Vincent. Game 3, again, they got to figure out the matchups. With Giannis coming back, my mind keeps going to, and I know this is something I hit on the other pod, but do you put Giannis on Jimmy Butler? Because the thing that you have been hammering all series long, either on the pod or during the watch parties, is that Jimmy Butler looks very comfortable. Which is wild to me because I do not think Jrue Holiday has done a bad job on Jimmy Butler at all. Those possessions have been incredibly fun to watch. But at the end of the day, Jimmy Butler is 6'7" and Jrue Holiday is 6'3". And if Jimmy can nudge the shoulder enough to get to the pull-up or to get to one of those push shots, or if he's just going to stare at Jrue Holiday for 4 seconds behind the 3-point arc and then just take a grounded 3 ball and knock it down, as he went 4 from 3 in game 3, which sure, there's only so much you can do. Does Milwaukee press that button? Do you put that strain on Giannis early as he's recovering from the back thing? Because I think if you go with that gambit and it works, Miami's really going to have to work to generate some good stuff. I think you're going to go right back to inverted pick and rolls, which Miami didn't have to go to that as often in game 3. You're going to go right back to, okay, Gabe, we need you to screen. Max Strus, we need you to screen. And go from there. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the button that Milwaukee pushes. And if Giannis is saying he's ready to go, I don't think you let him play and then also be conservative with him. Like, I think if he's ready to go, he's ready to rock. And that would be the button that I would push. Do you believe that Giannis can really shift this thing?
Well, yeah, he's very good at basketball.
Yeah.
It becomes a different series. And now not only do you have to guard him, he's going to command attention. It's going to change the lineup rotation. It's going to be very interesting. Here's my thing, though. Okay. Even with that, Miami has Jimmy Butler comfortable, and Milwaukee still gives up automatics. And if we're talking series-wide, if Jimmy Butler's playing well, if he can find the little creases against Jrue Holiday, if he can finish against Brook Lopez in the paint, and Miami knows we can get to these shots, we can get to these mid-range pull-ups, we can get to these threes, is that enough to win 2 more times?
Well, I mean, if they're going to shoot like 50, they're going to shoot like 87% from 3, then that would definitely do it. But like, I think the formula and the blueprint is there for Miami. I would also note what kind of got lost in, maybe not lost, that's probably the wrong way to phrase it, but secondary to Jimmy Butler losing his mind and just the general 3-point shooting. Miami's bench shredded Milwaukee's bench in terms of total production. I think the edge in terms of bench points was 59-28, which is where I pause and say, Victor Oladipo, please get better soon. That nobody likes to see that. I hope he is okay mentally. I hope that whatever procedure is needed from there is great. I hope the recovery is great. I do think this puts a little bit more strain on Miami's guards overall. They're already without Tyler Hero. Like, I had my questions coming in, like, okay, what kind of impact will Depot have offensively because of where the shot is and how he's defended when spaced? But he came in and fought. And the defense, you don't really question. And I think he really popped at the top of Miami's zone when they go to that. Without him, you have to get good stuff from Gabe Vincent now. You have to get good stuff from Max Strus. You have to continue to get the shooting from Duncan Robinson. And he has to hold up defensively. And you have to get Kyle Lowry.
Yeah, but say you're missing a name, buddy.
Yeah.
No,
this has to be
the most important one is Kyle Lowry. Mm-hmm. They need the pull-up shooting for Kyle Lowry over the next 2 games, buddy. Just need 2 more. Just 2 more of them for me.
Mm-hmm.
No, don't do the drive and sneak under the bat. No, take the shot. It's going to be there.
All right. A quick Bucks offense question for you, because we know what Giannis is going to dictate the paint touches. We know where that's going to go. We've talked about Brook Lopez's usage. I talked a little bit about the Jrue Holiday pull-ups. Chris Middleton just quietly chugging along all series long, winning one-on-one matchups, knocking down shots, getting to the pull-up, getting to the post-ups. I guess just a general, how have you felt about his usage? Do you think there are ways that Milwaukee could get him easier shots than what he's getting? Because he is subsisting on a pretty contested, defense-heavy shot diet.
I mean, that's kind of the Chris Middleton way, no?
It is, yeah.
I mean, if you want to set some screens for him, it's a catch. And if you didn't catch and shoot, it's catching, I'm going to do my thing. So, I mean, it's kind of a package deal, and to me, at least. I think the biggest thing is to get him making shots and to make Miami think about sending more help.
Okay. Understood. Do you have any closing thoughts on Heat Bucks? Because if not, all righty then. We can now move to our 2-2 series right now. Golden State, Sacramento. Fun weekend of hoops. No Draymond in game 3. Golden State blew Sacramento out of the water. 114-97 really wasn't that close. Kevon Looney legacy game somehow. Steph Curry went off. Jordan Poole had himself a solid one entering the starting lineup. Andrew Wiggins with a solid game as well. And then on Sunday, 126-125 victory for the Golden State Warriors once again. A hectic final 2 minutes where it looked like the game was just over and then it wasn't. And then Steph called a timeout that he didn't have. And there was a De'Aaron Fox possession at the end of the game where, cool, I'll go against Draymond. Wait, Harrison Barnes setting the screen. Wait, now there's just 2 here because Draymond's sending help. Harrison Barnes wide open 3. He doesn't get it to go. Fun game. But now we have a 2-2 series. It's a best of 3 at this point, heading back to Sacramento. My eyes go to De'Aaron Fox, who first and foremost has played very well in his playoff debut. He is hooping. I really had this thought bubble pop up for me during the game 4 where I was like, these are a lot of jumpers for De'Aaron Fox. And he needs them to, again, it's similar to the Ja Morant thing. Like, we know what he can do when he gets downhill. If he's getting downhill and putting pressure on you and he's knocking out a jumper, it becomes a what do we do with this guy type situation. And so I get it conceptually that he's going to need those. But he's taking a lot of threes. He's taking a lot of pull-ups. And then you look at where Sacramento is in terms of the percentage of shots coming at the rim for them. 23.6% of their shots are coming at the rim heading into game 5. That is 14th of the 16 playoff teams. I will just be kind and say Sacramento ranked a lot higher than this during the regular season. Do you worry at all about the shot profile for De'Aaron Fox, or just in general, where the Sacramento Kings are generating looks against the Warriors? And is this a them thing, or are you more impressed with what Golden State's been able to do defensively? Like, how do you kind of balance that part out?
I countered the first 2 games with the last 2 games. I thought Golden State did a much better job defending Sacramento's drives in games 3 and 4. I thought they did a better job of contesting at the rim. And I think De'Aaron Fox has done a good job of leading the dance when Golden State goes under, when Golden State goes drop. I think it's just going to be, can they find ways to get him downhill? Can he find the right times? Can he attack matchups? Because we saw that in the early games at Sacramento, where he was getting downhill, attacking players one-on-one. Can he get back to that? But I more tip my cap to Golden State for finding what they needed to defensively.
Mm-hmm.
As far as we're gonna go ahead and keep the ball in front. We're gonna contest at the rim. We've already been working against handoffs. We're playing off against the bonus. So just finding a way to fight. They have to continue and sustain that, to me. Because Sacramento, to their credit, they keep playing. So they're not going to stop.
Mm-hmm. And that's important. Also, just nice to see, specifically in the game 4, like Keegan Murray, welcome to the series. And a big game it was for him, knocking down shots and getting downhill occasionally as well. That's been cool. It's funny, like, as I think about the Kings in this series, like, first 2 games, like, wow, they've defended a lot better than I thought they would. Hat tip to them, hat tip to Steve for, like, saying, hey, well, this looks different when they get a game plan here. So they did that. And then you kind of zoom out these last 2 games, like the game 3 was kind of a wash. They just didn't have it. And Golden State took them out of a lot of what they wanted to do offensively. In game 4, they just kept pressing. And you start to see more of the threes fall for some of the secondary guys. You got to see Malik Monk bounce back from a very, very quiet game 3. And Malik Monk just very quietly becoming like a bellwether for Sacramento. If he plays well, if he knocks down shots, more importantly, if he gets downhill and wins one-on-one matchups, the Kings look very good. He didn't in game 3, and they just did not have enough offense to supplement what De'Aaron Fox was doing. But I just kind of zoom out. It's like Sacramento overall, like they haven't won in the ways that they normally do outside of their pace. Like, they haven't gotten a lot of shots at the rim. Like, the handoffs have been kind of muted, specifically when Sabonis is the handoff guy. They haven't shot that well from 3. Like, they've gotten virtually nothing offensively from Kevin Huerter. I do think he's done a quietly solid job defensively, chasing guys and navigating those switches when they need to. So I want to give him the hat tip there. But, like, the three-point shooting hasn't been there for him specifically. And here they are, 2-2. Like, I guess we shouldn't be surprised just because the Kings are a very good basketball team and they are the higher seed for a reason. But it's been fun to watch them kind of navigate this series against this team without the normal things working for them outside of we don't stop.
So I did some quick research.
Okay.
In this series, check out Sacramento's field goals made versus how many assists they have.
Okay.
And it's a little different than the usual story.
Yeah.
Game 1, 44 made field goals, 18 assists. Game 2, 42 made field goals, 22 assists. Game 3, 35 made field goals, 21 assists. Game 4, 48 made field goals, 25 assists. That's not their typical ratio.
Not.
But I don't necessarily feel like it's them not playing their style, which is interesting. And I want to see what it looks like in Sacramento. Mm-hmm. The question for me now becomes, did Golden State find the blend they need to win this series? Not just being able to put up a little bit more fight defensively, being able to play a couple more small lineups, You have been able to move the ball, get some movement going, add your own dribble penetration on your side, get to drive and kick. You still have the Steph Curry package of pick and roll. And then there's other things they can do, like inverted pick and roll. Hey, Steph, you go screen for Draymond Green. Oh,
yes.
That's where I was like, oh, okay. So Sacramento needs to do the thing because Golden State does have a whole other bag that they can just open up real quick. But yeah, when they went to that, I was like, oh boy, this is. I forgot they could just do Steph Curry pick and roll for a whole game and be like, bye.
Yeah, and this is why I ended up tweeting out, like, buddy, we are talking about inverted ball screens on the podcast as it happened. I was like, man, we know what they can do with Steph and Dre. Like, they've been torching teams with that specific pick and roll combination for over a decade at this point. When they flipped it, though, I'm just like, wait a minute. This isn't something that we see very often. This is also smart. Because you think about who's been on Draymond in this series. Like if Draymond's at the 5, sometimes it's Sabonis, sometimes it's Harrison Barnes. You are asking dudes to navigate screens that aren't used to doing that, and Steph Curry's on the other side. And it's kind of, it's funny, like the point you make all the time about reverse engineering. Like, okay, Jason Tatum's mismatch hunting here. How about he's the screener this time? And now he can hover at the nail, get an ISO that way. Doing that with the guard is genius, especially when it's the Steph Dre combination in particular. I don't know what you do with that. I don't know if there's a good counter to that. And then you add in what Golden State does. I found a newfound appreciation for the way Golden State not just moves off the ball, but the way they relocate during live action. And that may just be a virtue of watching this series and then going to Cavs Knicks. And it's just like, wait a minute. What is happening here? Why are you spacing here? We'll get into that one. I'm not going to go on the rant right now. But you invert the pick and roll if you're Golden State, and then you also have to worry about, well, Klay may be in the corner, but he might lift to the wing. He may cut and go to the other side. They may all shift around while all this is happening. It's just like, yo, what do you do with this? I guess while we're here, some great producing. We have some news to break on this series. Sacramento Kings star De'Aaron Fox has suffered a fractured index finger in his left shooting hand. Fox is expected to be listed as doubtful to play in Game 5 against the Warriors. Well, that certainly puts a wrench into a lot of things. Very dull analysis for me here, but if De'Aaron Fox is not able to play in Game 5, that takes away their figurative and literal driver of the offense. As someone who can just get it off the bounce. And I worry quite a bit about what that makes their offense look like, especially in light of how Golden State has defended the handoffs with Sabonis and how they generally played off of him. Oh, I will give. Do you have immediate thoughts too?
Oh no, I was going to say they're going to have to double down on their movement. Mm-hmm. They're going to have no choice. If Fox is going to be out, they're going to have to lean on how they've played. They're going to have to find ways for Sabonis to get the ball in pockets where he can finish. Mm-hmm. They won't have that anymore, which will tie back to your tempo question. Do you think that makes up for it at all? Can they find the movement, or is this just we don't have De'Aaron Fox, it's over?
I don't want to land on the latter point because that's not fun. I will say, like, Davion Fix is not De'Aaron Fox. Davion Mitchell has had a good series, and I do think he plays with some real juice. And so from just like a pure pace perspective, there may not be a drastic shift in that regard. Because Davion's done a solid job of mixing in. I am driving hard, or when he's off the ball, I am cutting hard. And I also have the 3-ball going. Like, he's done some good things. If he's the one that slides into the starting lineup, like, he's going to get similar coverage to De'Aaron Fox. Like, hey, we're ducking under. Have fun. If you hit 5 threes against us, we will tip our caps. But have fun with that. And even with his drives, like, he's not the finisher that De'Aaron Fox is. So even if he's able to access the paint, like, I don't think Golden State has to send help the same way. Or they can do so in a way to, okay, he may have an advantage right now. We are blanketing this pass to Domantas Sabonis. You're going to have to make some kickouts, bud. And we will trust our rotations behind that, and we'll see what we can do here. So that's just a blow. Maybe, as we think through this live, like, maybe this does adjust the tempo to a bit to where they can afford to play a little bit slower. Because, like, now we got Davion on Steph for 30-plus minutes now. Not that Davion's the Steph stopper, or if that anyone is the Steph stopper, but like, you feel better about Davion defensively than De'Aaron at the very least. And so if you can muck things up, and continue to be keyed in on Golden State's like sets and be able to stop some of the stuff that happens after that, it can still be a get stops and push game for them. Because if he's listed as doubtful now instead of just out, I would imagine there's going to be some optimism for game 6 or game 7 if they need it. They just need the whole serve, and it helps that they're going home. And so maybe you get the Kevin Huerter game, and boy, have they needed that. They're going to need the secondary ball handling. They're going to need some primary ball handling from him, I would imagine. Man, injuries stink, man. They just
they're not fun, but I do think Sacramento has a lot they can throw at the Warriors movement wise. I think they'll have to lean into it more than people are anticipating, and it could be interesting what that looks like in Game 5. The issue is they don't necessarily have that. They're not going to have that piece, that playmaker, that shot maker, unless Malik Monk has it going. So if it's a close game in the fourth, where do they go? That's where my mind goes a little bit more.
I got you. But as we saw in that game 1, like Malik can have it going. And so they do have enough like spark plug adjacent pieces to where if they actually have the 3-point shooting night that he's kind of haven't had in this series, if you're able to get some stuff from Malik, if Davion is able to puncture the paint enough, if you just have a big Sabonis game, like they can get it in a one-off. And they only need to win 2 of these next 3, which only, obviously, but they can pull this off. It becomes a lot more difficult without De'Aaron Fox, which again, very dull analysis, but this is what happens when you react live. Let's go to a 3-1 series. Cavs Knicks. The Knicks now with a 3-1 series lead, a 20-point win in game 3, 99-79, and then a 9-point win over the Cavs on Sunday. Jalen Brunson, very good in both games. I am very concerned about this Cavs team, and it feels like they're getting hit twofold. On the perimeter, their guards in particular are dealing with a spacing issue. Because I think in terms of who the Knicks care about when spaced off ball, it is Darius Garland and it's Donovan Mitchell. Everyone else can get helped off of. And in the case of like Isaac Okoro or Ricky Rubio when he's out there, we just don't care, period. And so I think the guards are dealing with restricted space when trying to navigate things. And then on the interior, Mitchell Robinson has, frankly, he's just been the best big in this series through 4 games. That's not something that I had on my personal bingo card. But the way that he's been able to navigate some of the 4-on-3 matchups that Cleveland's been able to generate when they go to 1-4 pick and roll, New York has typically gone a guy at the level when going after like Julius Randle, he's the screen defender, or Obi Toppin is the screen defender. Mitchell Robinson's had to clean up messes on the back end. He's done a tremendous job on that front. And then just on the offensive glass, generating extra possessions, Mitchell Robinson has ripped Cleveland to shreds in this series so far. It just feels like it's just really been tough sledding for Cleveland on both ends of the floor. Generating open looks and then finishing possessions on the other end. And this is on top of just what Jalen Brunson's been able to do in this series. Like, he's also been, I think, the best guard in this series. I'm concerned with how Cleveland's able to counter, honestly.
Here's the issue for Cleveland.
Okay.
The Knicks have doubled down on what they're doing defensively. We talked about it during the series. They're going to show early help often. Cleveland has tried to move all sorts of puzzle pieces. We're going to put Brunson in action. We're going to go empty corner. We're going to have Allen and Okoro as screeners. We're going to do as many things as we can. We're going to go off-ball movement. We're going to go off-ball movement. And the problem with starting LeVert is the Knicks are still defending the same way. And that's the dangerous part, because you get to a point in the playoff series where it becomes less about how good you are and more can you figure out this one specific thing. And Mitchell Robinson has been fantastic. He's been fantastic. His help off of Jared Allen's space at the block has been great. He's been in the way mucking things up. And Cleveland just hasn't been able to find the consistent counters. I think the closest thing they did when they had 2 bigs in, they started trying to get Jared Allen above like the free throw line, the elbow area. So that way at least the 5 was out of the paint. But at the same time, it only has a shelf life. You can only run it so many times. Mm-hmm. And so you have the issue where the Knicks defense is now showing the same help against your small lineup as they are against your big lineup. So if you can't go big and score, and then offensively you go small, you can't score that way. It's tough. You look at what they did to Donovan Mitchell, just little things to try and work and keep him out of rhythm. Donovan's in against, with the small lineup in the second quarter, doubles. We'll just double you on the catch. Your elbow catch will double you. We're going to try and keep you out of rhythm. Might put 2 on the ball. We're going to hit you that way. Now Garland has to play well. Now your bigs had to finish. I think the tricky part is the Knicks were so keyed in defensively, but offensively, they made a lot of quicker decisions.
That they did.
And you could tell very early on, and this is where you salute Jalen Brunson, because he was leading the dance. You want to put 2 on the ball? Cool. I'm just going to advance the ball. Now you guys are in rotation. And it's like, oh, this ball's moving. Oh, that's a little bit different. And I think it's funny because Jalen Brunson was, in that first half, he basically said, oh, cool early help. Here's a pull-up. Oh, more early help? Here's a lob right over your head, Jared Allen. And the combination of not being able to find your rhythm offensively, not necessarily being able to impact Jalen Brunson that way. Again, everyone likes to say that. People love to say that this time of year. Oh, we'll live with that. We'll live with that shot. Folks, it's the playoffs. If they make enough of those, you cannot live with it. You will not know. All New York has to do is have one more Jalen Brunson make shots game, and it's over. So I just want people to reconfigure their mind about that. What else did you have on this one?
No, I was just going to bounce off of that. And the early help from Jared Allen, because that's been popping on film for me. It's been popping on film for a lot of people that I follow on Twitter and listen to in terms of podcasts. Him stepping way up as soon as Jalen Brunson has an ISO and what that's opening up on the back end in terms of dump offs, in terms of lobs, even if the shot goes up. Now New York, again, advantage on the offensive glass, creating extra opportunities that way. It's just been kind of tough. And the way that Jalen Brunson has been able to dictate stuff has been, 1, fun, but 2, very problematic for Cleveland for very obvious reasons. Go ahead.
Did you just shout out other people outside of me? I've been saying that this whole time. But you know what? Never mind. Keep going.
What is that? What do you mean? I've given you. You know what? I'm going to leave that alone then. That's fine. That is fine. But no, on a serious note, though, I don't think Cleveland has done a great job of adjusting to what Jalen Brunson brings to the table. And even starting game 4, which is giving Jalen Brunson the Darius Garland matchup, which then leads you to send help anyway. Or if you're going to switch anyway, it's like, okay, what was the point of giving him the matchup already? And then you get the overhelp from Jared Allen and what that's opening up, both in terms of the initial shot and the second shot. It's just kind of odd. It's kind of tough. And to the Darius Garland point in general, talk about nailing the X Factor portion. He was your X Factor heading into the series. When he plays well, this team looks different. And Darius Garland in the second half with 21 points and I think 7 assists in the second half alone, he almost single-handedly brought Cleveland back. In the third quarter, he did single-handedly bring them back. But in general, they could have won that game with how he was playing. When he doesn't have it going, the game 3, when he did get a lot of good looks, specifically in the first half, and the shots just didn't fall, and the Knicks were able to play out of that, or if they're able to stifle him at all by sending extra attention or by mixing in some traps or just the early help in general, it just feels like there isn't room for Cleveland to operate. And that's kind of been the big theme. It's been trying to manipulate space and trying to find the lineups to manipulate that space. And you hit it on a little bit earlier. The Knicks are now just starting to defend them the same way or send the same degree of help at the very least to who is supposed to be opening things up for them. And it just kind of further highlights what these lineups have been for Cleveland. The very short stints for Ricky Rubio, New York proving very early on, oh, we don't care if he doesn't have the ball. And even if he does, we're ducking under. We're not worried about him as a scorer. There just hasn't been any sort of Dean Wade in this series, which is kind of odd to me. I would imagine they at least try him in game 5. We'll see. The Karras move, getting them to the starting lineup, I understood it. And I think I said that during my game 3 thread. I get it. You get an extra ball handler in there. And to the spacing point, this is a way that we can credibly space Garland and Mitchell at the same time and at least open up some room for LeVert to operate, try to find some stuff for the bigs. And to that point, very quick note, Evan Mobley has played better as the series has gotten on. It was a very rough start for the series with him offensively. He's looking a little bit more comfortable. I'll give him that. But man, you're not getting enough from LeVert. And then you look at the rest of the rotation, like what has been the impact overall for Danny Green in his minutes? What have they gotten from Okoro overall? Like I think Okoro, he may have just been their best like wing option so far in the series. And considering the spacing issues that he provides, that's also part of the problem.
The other problem is they needed Okoro because of what Jalen Brunson was doing. He had to come back in. So now you're in the same scenario. And that's been the overreaching theme for Cleveland. You continue to find yourself in the same scenario. You need Karis LeVert to be very good. The issue is RJ Barrett's trying to attack that man when he can.
Shout out RJ Barrett, by the way.
He took that personally. And then you also need Karis LeVert to nail every decision. Like I came here and I said, hey, it's a good idea. They need him to be good. Sorry, Cavs fans. If he initiates, look where the ball's kicking to. The issue is if he misses the read and then misses the shot and then takes a tougher shot, then it's like, okay, that's not great.
Oh, no.
So it's just for Cleveland, they're in a tough spot. And this is where I tip the cap to the Knicks defense. Again, excellent execution of their game plan. Excellent job of sticking with it. Josh Hart has been an insane person this series. Emmanuel quickly, I thought he was great defensively in game 4. I think he deserves some credit. So good stuff from the Knicks. They're up 3-1 for a reason.
Good stuff for the Knicks indeed. Let's move to another 3-1 series. We have Boston and Atlanta. Boston up 3-1. They did split in Atlanta at the very least. Atlanta with a 130-122 victory in game 3. Boston got it back in game 4, 129-121. For me, like Boston just has to do it one more time. And I think if anything, that game 3 really highlighted one, how good, but also how important Derek White is. Because I think game 3 was Derek White's worst game of the series defensively. He got in early foul trouble. And that was the first time over an extended stretch where Trae Young really just looked comfortable offensively. Like, okay, I don't have to worry about this crazy person blocking shots from behind or just hounding me on screens. Not that Boston doesn't still have good screen navigators, because obviously they do. But he's out of the way. I'm getting drop here. I can prep myself a little bit more to get to this floater. I can get downhill a little bit more and really force this big to make a decision. And I think it's something I pointed out after game 2, but if not, then I'll do so now. Like Atlanta whoever's in the weak side corner being a little bit more intentional about lifting as Trae's driving to further free up some of those lobs for Trae. Smart stuff. They have to keep that going. But I think that's really what stood out to me over this 2-game series. Like Trae finally looks comfortable. And in addition to what DeJounte Murray has been doing pretty much all series long in terms of the drives and the pull-ups, that's how Atlanta gets it done. Those 2 guards have to be really, really, really good. And then you have to get enough shots made from the others to make that work. And so Trae looking more comfortable getting downhill, just the drives in general looking better. DeJounte Murray continued to be good. We'll say on the DeJounte Murray front, there was like a ref bump at the end of game 4. Someone in the watch party, I think, pointed out that is generally an automatic suspension if you do something like that to a referee. So we'll see where that lands. That news hasn't broken as of time that I'm speaking, so we'll see. If he's not there in game 5, it just gets tough for Atlanta. I'll put it that way. But it's nice to see the offense open up for them. And for Boston, like the defense kind of has to set the tone. They have to be able to help where they can, switch where they can, shut down the drives as much as they can, and that gives them the pathway. Because offensively, they're going to get the threes up. Jason Tatum continues to be very good in this series. The comfort level for Atlanta popped for me in this one. What say you?
I'm not trying to be rude, Hawks fans. Does the comfort level matter?
I see.
Your formula is your guards get buckets. Your guards got buckets and you were down, 12 at half?
After making a push, and I think either tying or getting close to tying it. And then, it was, yeah. The other part is Atlanta also has to get stops, which roster construction stuff. You need Sadiq Bey because he can make shots, but Sadiq Bey also gets targeted. You need Bogdan to make shots because he's very good, but also he gets targeted. And continue.
In that game 4, 25 assists for the Hawks, 21 of those from Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. Who else is doing things for the Hawks? DeAndre Hunter's scoring. That's fantastic. What happened to John Collins? Where's John Collins? He made 5 field goals in the first game. He's made 6 since.
It's concerning, to say the least. They haven't found a way to consistently get him open. Also helps he's not shooting particularly well from deep and hasn't really done so all year long. Like, this is the worst type of matchup for John Collins specifically, too. Yeah.
Boston's not willing to participate and do their portion to help Atlanta's offense pop. They keep moving the ball. They keep attacking. They keep scoring. So it's like, cool. We just need to do this one more time, buddy. Then you're out of here. So I'm just like, I see the formula. If Atlanta can get the scoring, they give themselves a chance. Boston is just there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's kind of tough. And like, just to the general Boston rudeness standpoint with their roster, it's like, cool. We're dinging Al Horford a little bit on switches. We're finally getting some shots to drop again, go against the drop. We're getting some lobs to open up. Here comes Robert Williams. Have fun with that one. And he has been an absolute terror on the interior. And on the other end of the floor, like, the vertical presence has been very important. And in light of what Atlanta's point of attack defense has been, in light of the switching or lack thereof, because, buddy, they have botched quite a bit. And even in the game 3 victory, like, that popped, and in game 4 it specifically popped. That's kind of tough. Boston, warmed my heart. Boston just spamming Atlanta with Spain pick and roll. And Atlanta ain't know what to do with it. We gonna switch, we botch it. We gonna try to drop, here's a lob. It's just tough. We have got a Steve reaction. I guess that means we need to move to Phoenix and LA. All right. The Suns also with a 3-1 lead, a 5-point victory in game 3, a 12-point victory in game 4, in which Chris Paul absolutely lost his mind in the fourth quarter. That was very fun for yours truly. But with the series shifting back to Phoenix, what more can the Clippers do? This will be the question that I pose to you.
I don't know what else they could do. I give the Clippers a salute for what they've attempted to do. They have consistently tried to find ways to be like, hey, Phoenix, over here. I know that's working, but over here, come do this. Look, there's a big right here, and they're in a deeper drop. Don't you want to attack that? Hey, here's 4 guards and Terrence Mann. Woo! Like, they are competing and trying their best to just try and keep the Suns as close to the mud as possible and not give them one thing to focus in on. And then Phoenix is like, oh, cool, we found it. Hits the button. And the Clippers are like, oh, well, here's something else. So it's like, I know that's not the best analysis, but that's my favorite part of the series. I don't know how much more you can ask for the Clippers to fight in this one. They've given their all on that end of the floor. And they have kept Phoenix out of rhythm, at least, for large stretches of the game, no matter who's on the floor. That's very important. And to me, this is where it's going to get interesting, because I still think the Clippers presented such a unique challenge for this specific Phoenix Suns team. Every year we have a series where one team is in the mud, so to speak, or struggling against a team. They win and they take off. I wonder how much Phoenix gets that kind of bump, because they won't have to deal with this Clippers team and what they can throw at them.
And so, like, to bounce off of that, top thing in my notes was just kind of keeping tabs of what the Suns' pace is in the half court. And to your point, again, the Clippers have done a great job of putting Phoenix in the mud. But I just kind of worry about not necessarily the hierarchy. Like, obviously, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are your 2 best players. But there is so much strain on them to create. And against this matchup, it really highlights that in particular. Like, Devin Booker has been incredible all series long. And he has put his head down and driven more than pretty much any other stretch he's had this season. He has been the rim pressure guy for them. That's also a lot of responsibility against a lot of switchable dudes and a lot of different looks with a very heavy minute load. And I'm just like, I get, on one hand, like, if they get Denver next round, I don't think it's going to be that same issue in terms of, can he get downhill? Can he generate openings for others? But it's like, how much is being taken out of him right now? What does that look like? And then with Kevin Durant just generally trying to find his way. there've been so many weird pockets of I'm open, but yet I'm gonna pump and then I'm gonna take this contested shot real quick. Or I got a matchup, I'm gonna hold, here comes the double, or here comes some early help. I'm gonna hold up beat too long. And now y'all gotta play out of this. And like Phoenix is able to find their way sometimes. But I'm just like, this is the Clippers are bringing them in the mud, but they're also working through some stuff in real time. It is when you remember, oh, right, they only got like 8 games during the regular season. This is cool. This is a very unique series for them to try to work through these specific issues. But it also kind of pops. So I just look at that, the responsibility for those two and kind of the decision making, like what kind of weight is this going to hold moving forward? And then you kind of go down the rotation for them. They basically been playing 6.5 in this series. And the half has altered game by game. It feels like we saw some Terrence Ross. We don't see him anymore. We saw some TJ Warren. We don't really see him anymore. We weren't seeing Josh Okogie, and now we see a lot of Josh Okogie. Jock Landale, I think, was in game 1. We haven't really seen him. Here comes Bismack. That's cool. Damian Lee is back in rotation now. That's neat. Let's see.
I'm surprised. I thought we were going to get 15 minutes of Chris Paul.
If we had 15 minutes to do so, like maybe that's just going to be like some bonus content where I just lose my mind.
All right. Okay.
I will, I guess, very briefly, not even going to go into the bit, very briefly kind of reaffirm like how important his aggression is going to be because he remains the help point for the Clippers. And I would imagine that's going to be the case as well. The Suns generally have gotten good stuff out of, okay, Devin Booker has an ISO, Kevin Durant's one pass away. Or Devin Booker's in the middle of the floor, you got KD on one side, Chris Paul on the other side. That Chris Paul side is where like, we could cheat in a little bit more. He might not take it, or the release is so slow, or our defender's just bigger than him. We can contest and bottle the shot if necessary. So still going to be very important for him to make and take the shots that he's given because defenses are very comfortable helping off of him. That would be my Chris Paul point. Also rewatch that fourth quarter if you haven't already. That man went insane. All right, let's move on down the docket. We will close with the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Nuggets with a 9-point game 3 victory, 120-111, with Jokic having a triple-double. Game 4, the Wolves won in overtime in a game that probably shouldn't have gone to overtime. We're just going to be frank about it. But a 114-108 victory. Anthony Edwards lost his mind. Nikola Jokic eclipsing 40 points in this one. Has anything new popped for you in terms of Minnesota, maybe having a different path to really get into this series?
No.
Okay.
It's going to have to be activity. You got to try and work against Jamal Murray. Anthony Edwards needs to play very well. You need to try and get enough from Cat and Gobert in this series and hope you can pull one out. I think I felt a lot better about them after game 2. That game 3 hurt. Like they needed to get both of them to at least make this into, hey, we can punch with you for 3 games.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be pretty interesting. It's just the issue is how do you get Cat unlocked? And you're trying to figure out what to run with him and Rudy together. His minutes at the 5 coincide with Denver going smaller and saying, hey, we're switching all of this. You can go post up by the 3-point line. That's great.
These 20 feet post catches, man, are just.
And I think the reason why I say that is because in game 2, you saw Minnesota get Denver to the point where they felt like, oh, we have to put 2 on the ball. And what that opened up for Minnesota. You fast forward to game 4, Jokic is in a drop pretty comfortably. And I'm like, so the needle has not been moved. And that's where in the playoffs, you got to consider your job is to make the other team either feel uncomfortable or feel like, hey, we need to change what we're doing. Mm-hmm. If a series progresses and the team is like, actually, no, let's just keep doing that. You see it with the Knicks, like, oh, no, we found this. This works. Let's just stick with it. Denver saying, hey, no, Jokic, just drop. We'll be fine. Mix in sprinkle in a couple at the level. Mm-hmm. That's where I had more hope for Minnesota if they had gotten Denver into that kind of, we're rotating. Mm-hmm. But just if Denver's not going to cooperate there, it's going to be a fight. And they still have a lot of talent, so I could see it. Just take it one at a time. You can get yourself to 7 pretty quickly, but if Denver has an improved defensive effort, I think at home it might be tough.
Yeah, it did feel just watching it live, it did feel kind of sloggy in terms of just the juice that Denver played with. And I was trying to parse through, okay, how much of this is Denver not really working as hard as they probably should be. How much of this is Minnesota's trying to take some things away? Like they did do some different things. Like again, Nickeil Alexander-Walker remained in the starting lineup. He still got the Jamal Murray assignment. You saw more Cat on Jokic again, like we saw earlier in the series. And to Cat's credit, he fought. He absolutely fought defensively. Jokic still got many a bucket in that game. Only 6 assists for him, but got many a bucket. But Cat fought. Anthony Edwards was very good in this game. I always find myself quibbling about, okay, did you have to take this one? Here was a passing read here, et cetera, et cetera. But once he hit the mode where, okay, I'm just getting downhill every time I wanted to, I was like, that might be enough to where Denver needs to think long and hard about this one. Because as good of a defender as Aaron Gordon is, like he's not the guard defender. He's not that's not the prototype that you want to put Aaron Gordon on. You want him on big wing. You want him, like the job that he's done on Cat overall in the series has been very good. Like, okay, he's a little bit taller than me, but I know I'm strong. I can get into his base. I can move with him laterally. You're not beating me out the bounce. Ant's not the type of guy that you put Aaron Gordon on. KCP is not quick or strong enough for Anthony Edwards. If Anthony Edwards has that kind of intention to get downhill consistently, that's where I think Denver has to be like, okay, we just got to put Jokic at the level just so he can't turn the corner like this. And then you just kind of live with, hey, if it's Rudy on the short roll, let's see what we get out of it. And maybe Minnesota's able to kind of mix up who their screening partners are and generate some good stuff from there. But then even with that, like my question goes back to, okay, who exactly are you spacing around Anthony Edwards? Like this is where I have issue is too strong, but this is where my brow raises with the Nickeil Alexander-Walker minutes. So I don't think he's a bad player, but just in terms of how Denver has defended him, he can shoot. That's fine. Depending on where Rudy's is, we're not worried about it. I think that's where you need more Taurean Prince to where you can at least stress out whatever the back line is going to be for Denver. But I think it's going to be dependent on what level of aggression do we see with Ant. Not just in terms of shot attempts, but will he access the paint consistently? Because if it just turns into he's taking and making, even if he's making, if it's just we're taking a lot of step back jumpers with him, I think for a base for Denver, like you can live with Jokic in the drop, but that's all he's taking. And if he doesn't make enough, then we can get good stuff on the other end. Like Jokic can still go HB dive against whichever big you put on him. Jamal Murray's been cooking for most of the series. So I keep my eye on Ant moving forward. Like, what is his intention getting downhill, and what does that open up? And with that, thank you for listening to this episode of The Dunker Spot. If you have not already, please subscribe to us. We are on Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Podbean, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. You can follow me on Twitter at Nekias NBA. You can follow Steve on Twitter at SteveJones20. Join the Dunker Spot community on Twitter. We're having fun discussions in there all the time. Join the Dunker Spot online watch parties. We've been live basically every day of the playoffs, just watching the games. Plenty of analysis. We have some fun in the chat as well. The link should be in the description for the YouTube watchers. You can click on that. It's free to join, easy to sign up for, no shenanigans. For those listening audio-wise, the link should be in the podcast description as well. It should be hyperlinked. So if so, just click on that, sign up. If not, copy and paste the link. Again, easy to sign up for. It's free, no shenanigans. Subscribe to JJ Redick's YouTube channel if you want to see more of us. Trying to think, is there anything else? I don't think so. With that, we will catch y'all later in the week.
This man didn't have no free throws.